I want to tell you about a woman named Sarah. She woke up every single morning, got her kids ready, drove to work, put in her hours, sometimes stayed late, came home exhausted, and did it all over again the next day. She wasn't lazy. She wasn't careless. She was doing everything right, at least, everything she had been taught. But every month, it was the same story. The bills showed up. The bank account went down. And no matter how hard she worked, there was always more month left at the end of the money. Sound familiar? Here's the part that gets me. Sarah wasn't just struggling with numbers. She was struggling with something deeper. Something that most financial advice completely ignores. And one afternoon, while she was sitting at her kitchen table with a pile of bills in front of her, she opened her Bible, not looking for money advice, honestly just looking for peace, and she stumbled across a verse that stopped her cold. A verse she had probably read 100 times before. But this time, she saw something in it she had never noticed. And I truly believe that what she found that day changed not just how she handled her money, but how she thought about her entire life. I'm going to share that verse with you today. But first, I want you to understand why so many people, hardworking, honest, good-hearted people, stay stuck in financial stress for years. Because without understanding that first, the verse won't hit the way it needs to. Before we go any further, if you believe that Scripture can offer real wisdom for the real stuff of life, including money, including stress, including the feeling that you're always one unexpected expense away from falling apart, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. There are thousands of people walking through exactly what you might be walking through right now. And this channel exists to speak to that. Also, drop a comment below. Tell me one word that describes where you are financially right now. It could be behind. Could be scared. Could be hopeful. Could be rebuilding. Just one word. I read those comments. Every single one. Here is something that might feel uncomfortable to hear. The debt is probably not your real problem. I know. Stay with me. Think about this. You've probably known someone, maybe it's been you, who got a raise at work and somehow ended up with less money than before. Or someone who finally paid off a credit card and a few months later it was maxed out again. Or someone who received a lump sum, maybe a tax refund, maybe a little inheritance, and within 6 months it was completely gone. How does that happen? It happens because more money doesn't fix a money problem when the money problem isn't really about money. Here's a small story. A guy I'll call Marcus worked in construction. Solid job, decent pay. Got a promotion. His income went up almost 30%. He thought, finally, this is it. 6 months later he had more debt than before the raise. Not because he was irresponsible. Not because he didn't care. But because his habits followed his thinking, and his thinking hadn't changed. What we do with money is almost always connected to what we feel, and what we believe, and what we fear. Anxiety pushes people to spend. The feeling of, I deserve this, after a hard week pushes people to spend. Seeing what someone else has and feeling behind pushes people to spend. Fear that there won't be enough tomorrow, strangely, pushes people to spend today. This isn't a personal failing. It's a pattern. And patterns don't break just because your paycheck gets bigger. If something about this already feels true to you, write, I'm ready for change in the comments. I want to see it. And I want to pray over every single person who writes that. Let me show you the cycle, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Something stressful happens. A bill you forgot about. An argument. A hard day at work. Your stomach tightens. You feel that low hum of worry that never fully goes away. And so, almost without thinking, you reach for something that feels good right now. Maybe it's ordering food you didn't need. Maybe it's buying something online at 11 at night. Maybe it's something small, a coffee, a little treat. Feels okay in the moment. Takes the edge off. But the bill comes. And now there's a little more pressure than before. And that pressure adds to the anxiety. And the anxiety leads to another little release. And the cycle just keeps going. A family I know spent 3 years blaming their financial situation on their income. They were absolutely convinced that if they just made a little more, everything would be fine. Then the husband got a better job. And within a year, they were in more debt than they had ever been, because the spending had followed the income, and the anxiety was still there driving the choices. The real shift happened when they stopped looking at the numbers and started looking at the fear underneath the numbers. This connects directly to what Scripture talks about. Not in a vague, feel-good way. In a very specific, very practical way. And that is exactly what we're building toward. If anything so far has made you think, go ahead and hit the like button. It takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps this message reach people who are sitting at their own kitchen table right now with a pile of bills wondering if anything will ever change. Now here's something that might shift the way you pray. Most people, when they're in financial trouble, pray something like this: God, please give me more money. Please help me get out of this. Please let something come through. And look, there is nothing wrong with bringing your real needs to God. Nothing at all. But consider this. What if the prayer that actually changes things is a little different? What if the prayer that opens the door isn't God, give me more, but rather God, change how I think? Here's why that matters. There's a pattern in Scripture where God doesn't just hand people resources. He first works on the person. He shapes the character. He shifts the perspective. He builds the kind of inner foundation that can actually hold the outer blessing when it comes. Because if the inner stuff hasn't changed, more on the outside just adds more pressure. Think about Solomon. He didn't ask for riches. He asked for wisdom. And the riches came. Think about Joseph. His freedom and influence didn't come before his character was formed through years of difficulty. Think about the prodigal son. The father ran to him while he was still on his way home. But the turning point, the thing that started everything, was when the son came to his senses. The change started inside. What if the financial breakthrough so many people are waiting for is actually waiting on something to shift on the inside first? If you believe that God can work on your heart and that the outer stuff can follow, right, I believe that, in the comments right now. Okay. We are getting close. There is a verse in the Bible that most people have read and moved on from. It doesn't sound like a financial verse. It doesn't mention budgeting. It doesn't mention debt. It doesn't mention income. But in my view, and in the view of many people who have wrestled with it, it contains a principle that, if you actually lived it, could reshape your entire relationship with money. It's not about having more. It's about something that, honestly, is harder than having more. I'm going to give it to you in just a moment. But I want you to be ready for it. Because the tendency is to hear it and think, yeah, okay, I've heard that before. And then move on. What I want to challenge you to do is actually sit with it. Let it settle. The verse is Philippians 4 verse 11 through 13. And here is what it says, in plain, everyday words. The Apostle Paul writes that he has learned to be content in whatever situation he finds himself. He has known times with very little. He has known times with plenty. And in both, he has learned the secret of being okay. Then he says the part everyone knows, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Most people hear that last part and think it's about doing big things, achieving things, winning. But look at the context. Paul is talking about contentment. He is saying, I have learned how to be at peace whether I have a lot or a little. And the strength that makes that possible comes from my relationship with Christ. Now here is what I find so striking about this. He says he learned it. Contentment, in Paul's framing, is not a personality trait some people are born with. It's not a feeling that shows up when your bank account hits a certain number. It is something that can be learned. Something that is developed over time. Something that can grow in you. And here is why that is financially significant. Almost every impulse buy, almost every anxious spending decision, almost every financial choice made from a place of fear or comparison or, I deserve this right now, all of it has, at its root, a lack of contentment. A sense that what I have right now is not enough. That I will feel better when I have that. That I need something outside of me to make me feel okay on the inside. Contentment doesn't mean you stop working toward better things. It doesn't mean you accept a situation that needs to change. It means you don't let the wanting control you. It means your peace is not held hostage by your circumstances. And that changes everything about how you handle money. If this verse landed somewhere real in you, write the word contentment in the comments. I want to see how many people this is reaching. Let me tell you how Sarah's story ended. Not with a lottery win. Not with a huge promotion. She didn't get a windfall. What happened was slower and more real than that. She started praying differently. Instead of asking for more, she started asking for wisdom. She started pausing before purchases, even small ones, and asking herself honestly, am I doing this because I need it, or because I'm anxious right now? She started noticing the cycle. And just noticing it gave her a little bit of power over it. She stopped comparing her life to what she saw on her phone. Not perfectly, but more than before. And little by little, the choices changed. The small debts started going down. The anxiety started loosening its grip. Not because her income jumped, because her relationship with enough changed. She told me once that the most surprising thing about the whole experience was that the peace came before the financial situation fully turned around. The inner thing shifted first. And then, gradually, the outer stuff followed. So here is what this might look like practically, if you decide to take it seriously. Before any significant purchase, before you click checkout or swipe the card, take 10 seconds. Ask yourself honestly, is this coming from a real need, or is this coming from anxiety, from comparison, from wanting to feel better right now? You don't have to judge yourself for the answer. Just know the answer. Start building the habit of waiting. Not forever. Just a little longer than you normally would. Impulse fades fast. If the thing still makes sense in 2 days, maybe it makes sense. If it doesn't, you just kept that money. Pray before financial decisions. Not as a ritual. As a real conversation. Ask for clarity. Ask for wisdom. Ask for peace that doesn't depend on the outcome. And work on the comparison. This one is big. Social media is essentially a highlight reel of everyone else's life, and measuring your real life against someone else's highlight reel is a guaranteed way to feel behind no matter how much you have. None of this is a formula for getting rich. I want to be honest about that. This is about developing the kind of wisdom that handles whatever you have well. Because handling what you have well is actually the foundation that makes more possible. If you're deciding today to take even one of these steps, write in the comments, "Today I start a new story." That kind of public commitment matters. It's the first brick in a new direction. Here's where I want to land. That woman sitting at her kitchen table with a pile of bills. Maybe that's you right now. Maybe not bills. Maybe it's just the weight of feeling like you're always behind, always catching up, never quite there. I want to suggest something. Maybe what you found today isn't just financial information. Maybe there's something here that speaks to how you see yourself, how you handle fear, how you approach the everyday decisions that add up to a life. The verse doesn't promise wealth. It promises something that, honestly, I think most people would trade wealth for if they understood what it really was. Peace that doesn't depend on your bank account. That's worth more than a financial formula. If this spoke to you today, subscribe to this channel. Every week, we bring scripture into the real conversations people are actually having. The hard ones. The ones about money and stress and hope and starting over. And before you go, share this with one person. You probably know someone who is carrying financial weight right now and hasn't said anything about it. This might be exactly what they need to hear today. Send it to them. It costs you nothing and it might mean everything to them.